All right, here we are at the start. I can't believe I walked right by this. We have the Patreon, Twitter, Discord, email for Karl. And here's Karl.
So, I made this world 2.5 years ago for a bunch of my friends that I met on VrChat, and it was just supposed to be this little house area with none of the outside, and just a normal VrChat hangout place that you make for your friends. But it quickly grew out of that, and I decided to add this whole adventure outside.
Yeah, I think
But
you
you can still
failed on
see
that
that
original
at
idea.
first. You can see that at the beginning I was just adding a bunch of hangout options like a table that changes the size or gallery and everything. But these are kind of the oldest things that I've added here. They've never changed since I added them. Yeah, you can change the table. And actually, if you sit in one of these chairs and you change the size, you kind of get stuck and you can't move out like that.
Oh, I'm stuck.
Yeah. Yeah, you get stuck until you either respawn or change back to the specific pattern it's looking locked. And this whole adventure of FFCR started from this room. I added this weird room with the upside down water, and everybody was like, "Oh, Karl, what is this? This is so cool. You should make more of this." So I decided to go and make this a very weird world. And this was, for the longest time, the Carling room. The Carling room is where me and my friends came to sit on these chairs upside down. And we would look at this therapeutic scenery, listen to this therapeutic audio, and think about our lives. That would be Carling.
Okay.
Think about our lives, talk about it, and such. It would be called Carling.
This is actually usually the thing that gets the most reaction when I show people this world.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's this upside down room, and it has these 4 generators on the top. One of them you find outside in the water as well. If you ever wonder what those are like anti-gravity generators for the water. And of course, you can mess with the water shader. It's kind of interactive, so you can throw a bunch of snow particles in it, and it makes ripples in it.
Oh yeah, it's the particles doing that. I didn't realize.
Yeah. Yeah, so avatars, these spheres, anything that touches it just makes ripples, and it's really cool. That's it. Aside from that, we have the entrance, and at first I was planning to open that door up to a whole other area, like a similar desert over here, but towards that side of the building, but I've never gotten to do that yet. You have the elevator to the second floor, which used to have a mirror in it, but people complained that it's a jump scare. So I removed it. Yeah, you don't believe it. Everybody was like, "Oh my fucking god, Karl, how could you? Why did you put that there?" And everybody was like getting jump scared by it, so I removed it.
I notice
We have
people are
hangout
impressed
area.
by elevators a lot.
Yeah, they're quite underrated in the VrChat, in my opinion, and the ones that actually work. You don't find most of them just teleport you. So the hangout area that nobody hangs out at. Butterfly, except this butterfly.
Which is definitely something that shows up later. All of this comes into play again later.
Mm-hmm. And we got the clock that shows how long you've been here. For us, it's like 15 minutes. Probably 3 hours by the end of this tour.
Yep.
And here's where it breaks my heart. These couches were always here, but people were complaining that this is a great place for a mirror instead of the outside. So I had to have this.
Yeah, people with
And
their
keep in mind,
full-bodied
back then,
mirrors on their balconies.
yeah, back then this was on Spotlight constantly, and everybody was coming to it. So I was kind of just trying to not upset everybody all the time.
You
So
should
I had to add
have.
this mirror here,
You
but I
should
don't use
have
it.
made a mirror, but cut out a big square right in front of these couches.
Right. So let's go down. Except there's the gallery, but I think you've been to that. Let's go to there at the very last, I guess, of everything.
Okay.
The music is quite credity, if you will. So here's the outside. I added this about 6 months after the initial release of this, and that's about the same time I actually published it. And it was private for 6 months because I didn't think anybody would like the weird stuff I was making. So until people started encouraging me a lot strongly to publish it, I wasn't going to publish it. Yeah, I did, and it was a good decision. Now I'm making volts all the time.
And now you're mega famous.
I'm not. But yeah, let's start by bragging about this underwater effect.
I remember something I pointed out in the first video, that moonlight comes from nothing, or like not where the moon is.
I was gonna mention that. Yeah, the moonlight is a fraud. It's exposed. But okay, let's explore the lore a bit. This whole place is in the same universe as many of my other worlds. It's in this world where a nuclear war happened in our civilization of humanity, and everything is destroyed. And different parts of this universe is shown in different parts of my world. In this place, the whole area turned into the desert after the war. Sand took over everything. And in other worlds, like Race Against Fate, it turned into a nuclear winter. So quite different and opposite sides of the Earth that I'm trying to show what happened to them at this event in this universe. And this whole huge island that this FFCR world is actually representing a bigger place. It's not literally an island with these landmarks in it. It's representing a country, and each of these landmarks are representing aspects of that country. And I'll be explaining each of those aspects and what happened to them in this whole event. Here's the first thing. Hope those world volumes are up.
Yeah, I put them at 100.
Or else I'll be upset.
I know.
Let's take this thing for a spin. Your avatar all gets crunched there.
Oh, it's always like that.
As I remember, you called it the cube that crushes, huh?
Yeah, the cube that crushes and the Large Hadron Collider.
Right. Nice name. But yeah, how do you tell if the cube is going up and down now? It all depends. And that's the main theme of this world. It's all about different points of view, different perspectives, being on different sides of things, contrasts and transitions. You can find that a lot in my work about contrasts and transitions. Stop it. Exactly where it started.
Oh, I didn't know you could just stop it.
Yeah, but hold on. Just a couple of degrees, yeah, perfect. So what is this and why does it exist? It exists because there was an architect in this world who designed all these different machines for a purpose. And the purpose for that was he wanted to represent the human mind and how us humans interact with each other as a species, as a group, or individually on our own. And he wanted to do this because the world that people were living in, this universe, was facing very major challenges in its way. And those are not only the nuclear war, that was just the last thing that happened. Before that, the world was sinking in pollution, in poverty, in all sorts of issues, overpopulation, things that we, us humans, would eventually face ourselves as well in real life. And climate change and all the things that you hear about. So the story of this place is kind of like a iteration on life and how it could go wrong, perhaps. Now, I've added my own like style of things to it, but the main thing is that this is kind of how our world is and how it could go wrong. And this is a possibility. This is a scenario in which it has gone wrong, and I explain how it went wrong. That's mainly the story here. So, this guy, this architect, wanted to. He noticed that the only way to stop all this from happening, for humanity to change the world for the better, is for everybody to come together and unite, which is something we are very bad at doing. We are not able to do that very easily. We can't find common ground without help. So what he wanted to do was to create these machines to help people understand how their minds work. And that might be a bit abstract, but for example here, he created this machine that has all these chairs. People would come and sit on these chairs, and they would think together to change something about the world. Now, the power of them thinking together would start to turn this machine, and in such a way, he would inspire these people to do this thing in real life. And he used this as like some sort of a therapeutic session for these people to come together and work together on something. And this whole machine, I know you call it the hydrogen glider, but it's actually called the changing room, where you come, change yourself, and change the world. And yeah, that's how it works. And it's actually the energy of the people working together is what remains here, which can still turn this machine. That's why it spins even today. So there were great efforts to change the world on the very last second of the catastrophe, but none of it was enough, sadly. So this is just a scenario where lots of things went wrong, but lots of hope presented itself as well, but it wasn't enough at the end of the day. And actually the symbol, let me explain that as well. The symbol you always see in some of my works, it has a little story behind it. The architect came up with that, and what it represents is that each of these vertices of these shapes are basically people, and the connections between these people are the lines. So it starts with a triangle because that's the most basic shape, and more vertices add onto it, more people come join this group of union until it becomes more like a circle where everybody is connected. And that was the base principle that he wanted to use to save the world. If everybody came together and everybody was connected in this group, it would become unbreakable and it could achieve anything. And he put this symbol in everything to keep reminding people that this is what we need to do and this is what we need to achieve. And yeah, that's the symbol you see here. That's what it means. People and their connection together. There's more machines like this. that you made. Oh dear, it's gonna get quite philosophical soon.
A bit.
So I spend a lot of time fine-tuning all the assets that I put in this world. So there might just be one scaffolding here. I would have simply added more to make it more of an apocalyptic, realistic thing, but I kind of just try to represent things instead of making it too realistic as a game. I try to represent that the scaffolding used to hold a very huge structure together, which was probably an achievement for mankind, and they were proud of it. But over time, everything came down and everything is being washed away in the sand. So instead of making a cool scaffolding, instead I wanted to show that everything that mankind tries to build will eventually be washed away and in the pass of time. And we're now walking on it as if it's nothing, but this used to hold together a very majestic structure, of course. So that's what I'm representing there. And that's almost true about every art asset in this world, including this table with the radioactive rock inside. Now, this thing, it is radioactive. If you hold it against the moon, you can see the light coming through it. Don't know if you've ever tried it.
I did not. That's interesting.
Yeah, you can like use the J and K keys to like rotate it in your hand in front of the moon. You can kind of see light coming through it in some areas. Kind of translucent.
Mm-hmm.
So it is radioactive, and it makes the screen this color, makes a rumbling noise. Now on it says emit, and that's because, well, it is radioactive and it's emitting something, but it's also because the little story behind this table itself. This is the table of the scientist who first discovered radioactivity. And the way that was discovered, I'm sure you probably know about it already, as I told you, but it discovered very randomly, actually. This person had a desk that had a drawer, and in this drawer was a piece of film, the random rock they found in a minefield someday. And this drawer was closed all the time, and when he would bring out the pieces of film every now and then randomly, he will notice that they are already developed, even though they've been in this closed drawer in their packets in the darkness all the time. So he realized by chance that maybe something in the drawer is emitting something. So he made a bunch of tests. He removed the items from the drawer one by one, and after a while he realized that it only happens when this rock is inside of it. And then he assessed that this rock must be emitting something, and hence came radioactivity and everything else afterwards. They started making bombs out of it after 60 years of discovering that. So quite a curve of inventions right there. And this rock is here because it's the key to this whole journey. It's like the icon of this destruction that we're going to use to go through it. So you could see it as that kind of an icon. But let's leave it here for now, because it makes noise. We'll come back for it later. Approaching the windy hill. Yeah, check out the windy hill. We have lots of wind here.
Oh yeah, something similar to this shows up in Race Against Fate, I believe.
Oh yeah, it's my favorite animated asset that I've made.
And that desk shows up again in Vision.
Yeah, it's the desk of the architect. And it's not just the Windy Hill, actually. This is the remains of a research facility, a remote research facility, and it's kind of guarded off by these fences, as you can see. And it has this one pod in the middle. So this is just like the last remains of the whole thing. It's all being buried in the sand. What they did in this research facility was developed they developed humanoid uh, creatures that could they could live easily in the new conditions of the world because the world was so polluted and normal humans couldn't really work in the environment efficiently anymore. So one of their solutions they were coming up with once all this crisis was happening was to develop these humanoids that didn't really need as much food, they didn't really need medicine, they could live a very long time, and they could basically treat them as machines. So they were developing these people, and the thing that happened was that the war happened and these humanoids were being developed, but they were also safe from all the shockwave and radiation and everything that happened during the war inside these things. So after many years had passed and humans had basically gone extinct, these things opened the door and came outside finally and started walking in the new world. And in a way, us VrChat players who are looking through this could be the remnants of these people. If you think about it. Yeah. That's the Windy Hill. Some crushed shipping container. God knows what crushed this thing. But now it's a bridge. So let's go to the burnt forest next. I hope you have your HUD and nameplate disabled, by the way.
I was leaving the nameplate on, but I couldn't get rid of it.
Yeah, let's leave the nameplate on for this part because it's blurry. So here's the burnt forest. Quite desolate. So this whole landmark represents the nature of this place, this country. This used to be a whole forest for itself, and it all got burned down after the war, of course. Very little remains of it, and this is like the one last tree that is remaining of the entire nature in this place. And in this story, I have different forces that have a say in this world. One of them, of course, is the will of humans that destroyed this world and their effect on things. The other one is the will of nature, the spirit behind nature that had some effects on things, and it resides here now. And what it does is that there's this button. If you highlight it, it says listen. And if you click it, you hear this music. Now, make sure that you can hear my voice, so adjust your world volume. I'll explain what this is. So, this is the sound of the forest talking to us, and it's trying to send us a message. And what that message is that it's trying to communicate to us and tell us not to make the same mistakes as the ones before us did, which were the humans who destroyed this world, who were through the war. And It's doing that because, well, it can simply not do that because we've destroyed nature, we've done that, and why would it help us again to regrow if we're working against it? Here's the morale of this whole thing, is that nature is quite resilient, it's quite forgiving, and it understands the balance of things. It does not think in the way of eradicating the race of humans. So, what we do, we try to eradicate each other. So it's trying to help us understand, it's trying to save at least one of us so we could regrow this world back to normal, back to balance. It doesn't think that everything, if something is against it, it has to be destroyed. It thinks that in a way it could reach us and help us. And again, it doesn't have to do that because it is growing back slowly. Like there's grass here and there, sky is clearing up, so things are going to be going to back to normal quite soon, in some years. And it doesn't need us to do that, of course, it does it all on its own. And it could easily just leave us be to our own devices and let us go extinct. But in this story, it has this will to help us. And this button doesn't actually exist there, since you know by now all these things are metaphors for other things. That button is in a way our effort to regret and go back to nature and seek its help. And one would only see that, one would only hear this if they actually care about nature. If they don't care and they just walk by it as another landmark, they would just hear the noise audio. And that's basically what this is. Many of these buttons in this world aren't literally buttons that operate things. They are your actions, they are the way you think, the way you care. And yeah, that's what I mean. That's why they are named weird things like that was called listen. It's the action that you're doing. You're listening to this nature. Let's go back from it to the normal wind. Click on it again. And you click on it again, you hear this really nice ambient. Which sounds like one of those audio cues when you do a good deed. And that's what it is. It's trying to let us know that you did a good thing. Yeah. So that's what this whole place is. We'll come back to all of these after a while, revisit them. So that was about the forces of nature. This one is quite the opposite. This is the remains of a factory. Again with the button. So, yeah. Oh, that's a good trick. So let's stop it so we can talk. We had the will of humans, we had the will of nature, and now we have the will of machines. These are also something that played a part in this whole thing. As this world was getting crazier and more desperate towards catastrophe, new things were uncovering themselves, new things were unearthing that wanted to stop it from happening. It's like these forces always existed and they never spoke. But as the world was getting to its end, it was getting to the extreme of things, they finally started speaking out to stop it from happening. One of the things that did that were the machines. Now, the way they did that was this. We always use machines as humans to make our lives easier, to produce more efficiently, to allow for more humans to exist. So in a way, they're doing a really great thing for us. Ever since the Industrial Revolution, they've allowed more and more humans to exist, whether it's with agriculture, production, or whatever it is. But they've created lives, basically. They've given us the opportunity to exist more. But how we treat them as machines, as trash. When their lifetime is over, we don't need them anymore. We can recycle them. We don't really pay respects to them. We don't thank them for what they do. And in this case, these machines found to have feelings after a while, and they've been very happy with us, the way we were treating them. Of course, they're like slaves. We use them, and then we dismantle them. They become trash like this, and they fall apart, and we don't care about them. And since they were done with that, one of these hydraulic arms over here decided to go against the owner of the factory, and it went out of control one day and tried to destroy this control panel. And this control panel was being used by this manager over here. They would sit here and keep clicking on that button to work, stop work, work, stop work, controlling them. So for them to break free of this control, they revolted basically. But as you can see, it sadly didn't quite get it. It did its one last effort, and then it was shut down. But it also has a morale here. This story has a morale, and it's that even though this human was right here, this machine didn't kill the human in charge, which would have been easier. And it should have probably done that if it really wanted to stop everything. But it didn't, because even this machine understood, with all of the suffering we put them through, all the work we made them do us, this machine understood the value of life, that you can't just take it just because you disagree with it. So instead it tried to disarm the means that the human had for controlling it, which was this control panel. So it seems like machines were more human than we were. But it didn't really matter at the end anymore, since everything is now being sinking in the sand. After the war, everything is being forgotten. So you see, lots of little hopes, lots of little events, but none of them are the hero that saves the world. None of them is the thing that saves everything. It's just like those spirits in my New Vision world that kind of come out of the graves and then they disappear. It's kind of like that. None of them become a sun that stays there. So I just wanted to show that this is kind of how things are in real life. Something good happens, but it doesn't change things forever. The next day, it's the same thing is still happening. The world is still going forward. But you were going to say something, I feel like.
I have been leaving silence because their storytelling is pretty captivating.
Oh, I hope it is. We come at the cube. Here's another one of those machines the architect made. It has 4 buttons for controlling the audio, as usual, with these places, and 1 for syncing this animation, so click on that once, so we have the animation synced. Yeah, click on this white button once, since it's global. Yeah. Now, this gets quite metaphorical and philosophical, so let me explain how this cube is so important. He made this whole contraption to represent that machine over there, the giant hydraulic collider, was about a bunch of people coming together to think, to change something about this world. So a collective effort, effort, change and think. Quite the opposite of that one. This one is about an individual's effort and an individual's mind. And this cube, basically, this machine of the cube, is the mind of a human trying to find the solution to a problem. It's overthinking. It's brainstorming. It's in stress, find a solution. And the problem itself is this huge cube going up and down, which is really heavy and scary, like a problem would be if you're in stress of solving it. And all of the melody and the theme and the music and this contraption around it is the mind. This music is like the feeling you're having. It's a representation of the feeling you're having when you go through these different stages of overthinking. And he made this to bring individuals here and help them understand themselves. Because you first need to understand yourself and know what you want from life, know if you want to help this world or not. What is it that you want to do in your life? Then you would go and work with others. So this was one of his other therapeutic things that he did with people. And these 4 stages are the 4 different ways one would overthink that he wanted to show here. Right now it's on stage 1, and I'll explain the audio of each stage because it's made of these elements which have to do with the overthinking. So it has 3 main elements here. One of them is this drum sound that keeps getting faster and faster, which represents time and the rush that you have for figuring out this whole thing. When I say problem, it can be anything. It can be an individual problem. It's not necessarily, this part necessarily doesn't have anything to do with what happened to the rest of the world. You can relate to this on any personal level, if you will. So the drums are the time that is rushing and you have to race against it. And the sound you hear when it switches, the flips, the gravity, is when you're going between one point of view to the other. So it's this cycle of how do I look at this, how do I figure this out. And this noise when it falls down, it impacts the ground, the metallic noise it makes, the impact. It's the hit of reality is the best way I can put it. It's the scare factor that if you don't figure this out, this is what you're facing. It gives you an example of the weight of this cube in case you don't figure it out. And it keeps reminding you, it keeps like putting you in this fear that you should be figuring it out or else this is what you're facing. So those 3 elements can cause you to have a stressful overthinking session with yourself. And let's see how the second stage is different. There's a very slight audio difference. It's global, by the way, so if I click on it, it's fine. So second stage is mainly the same in all aspects except the impact. If you notice, the impact here is much more present and metallic and heavy than the one before. There's a focus on it here more. So this is when you basically have a panic attack and you're thinking with yourself about how to solve this problem, but you're focusing too much on what will go wrong if you don't, rather than how do you actually going to solve it. So you're not very efficient in coming up with a solution in any way. You're just going in your own self-destructive cycle of being afraid of everything and thinking that everything is impossible. Basically having a panic attack, which again is relatable. All of us humans, we all had this at some point. So yeah, it doesn't work. It does not work towards finding a solution. It's just very scary and it's unrealistic. You might think you're being realistic because you're like, oh, this isn't going to work because of this, that's not going to work because of that. You're being like realistic, but that's not really realistic because you're considering it too much. You're considering it so much to a point that it doesn't let you come up with new things anymore. So you're stuck. And so is the next one, actually. Here's the third stage. The next stage, the third one, doesn't even have the impact. So it's quite the opposite of that, but still on the same concept. You're stuck in the sense that you're not even considering what happens if you don't figure this out. You're just basically laid back and arrogant, and you're in your own fantasies. Everything sounds nice, there's no fear in anything, there's no motive for you to find a solution. You're just thinking about how nice it would be if things went to your way. So there's not a balance of anything here either. In the other one, you were too afraid, and on this one, you're too laid back. So again, not productive. You might come up with things, but they're not going to be practical in the real world, because you're not considering any of this fear, any of this weight behind the issue at hand. That's the third one. The fourth one, I change now. This is the more hopeful sounding one. Imagine you can guess why. It has this like high pitch ambient in the background added. Sounds like some saw blades are turning in the background. That's how it sounds like. And if you think about it, saw blades turning, well, what does that represent? Kind of represents progress in a way. Hacking through something. It's like some sort of progress, and it's an instinctual feeling that this sound is more hopeful than the other ones. And the elements are all there. There's the shift, there's the time, there's this added hope, and also there's that fear element, but instead this time it is the reverb of it, it is the background of it, it's not just really present there. So you have a nice balance of all these emotions, all these motives, but you're quite hopeful. You're moving forward. That added pitch is your will move forward no matter what. And this is the most likely state where you find a solution and you finally stop overthinking. But as he was trying to represent with this meaning, our human mind isn't this simple, and all these stages are interchangeable. So you would fall for this back to the second stage, which is the panic attack, and just go in between as many times as your mind would, based on the kind of person you are. So yeah, that's what it represents. This huge problem that needs to be fixed, and how you deal with it. And he helped a lot of people by bringing them here, but again, too little, too late, sadly. So it didn't really change the fate of the world, even though it saved many individuals and it created many groups of people who wanted to do good in the world. But it was too little, too late, because still the governments of these places weren't made of these people. So the world still got ruined in the end. Now, he also carefully designed this machine to say something as well when you stand underneath it. Just look up a bit as this thing falls on us. Almost, but not quite. The way he made this was intentional. He wanted to show the viewer of this view right here underneath that this reality, these scary facts, could easily fall on you every day. They don't, because of very simple things in our everyday life that save us from them. It's like you're driving and you have your seatbelt. You don't constantly think about how your seatbelt might be saving you from a car accident today, but it might end up doing that. And in fact, it's all these little simple things in our everyday lives that are keeping us alive. The moment you remove them, you'll start noticing that they're not there, but you don't appreciate them for being there every day because you get used to them. And that's what he wanted to remind you by sitting under this and noticing this simple glitch. The like simple ledge is a very simple thing. It's just a bunch of concrete that's keeping that from falling on us. It doesn't need to be intricate. It's just a very honest effort to keep that from happening. So yeah, those are the kinds of things we have. A lot of them. For some people, it's their pet, it's their dog. Some people, it's another person. Some people, it's like a tool, an object, whatever it could be, that saves their life, that keeps something horrible from happening to them. Not even life-threatening. Maybe for someone, it keeps them from falling into depression. It's something that keeps something horrible from happening to you, but it is unnoticeable. You get used to it, so you forget about it. So people used to come here and sit down and look at this and get reminded of that fact, and then go and appreciate the things they weren't appreciating. That's what that was used for. So let's just remember this whole thing that is thinking and come back to it later. What were you saying?
I was going to say to talk a little bit about behind the scenes of why I named it the cube that crushes you. Is you can jump up there and get crushed, although it will trap you inside the cube.
Right.
And what's interesting,
you can look at that in some ways, that you get trapped in it. Mm-hmm. Maybe that means something. It's a very weird thing about this world. Like, I didn't mean for that specific thing to mean anything, but now that I think about it, it kind of means something, that you get trapped in it and you can't get out of it. So I don't know why everything kind of makes sense in this world to have a story behind it. Here's the sign again. So the complete version of the sign has these connections in the middle, a bunch of lines that are connecting in the middle, connecting the people together, which is the main aspect of the whole thing. Without it, it's just a shell. And it only works if everybody in it is willing to work together. And that's missing here, so if we find that piece, we bring it here and complete the sign. Oh dear, controversial topic ahead.
Oh no.
So this place talks a bit about how the government of this country functioned, and most likely the government of the other countries in this universe functions as well. Oh, hold on. Oh, come stand over here. Mine's super. This is a really cool view from behind this cloth.
Oh my god.
That's cool. I didn't notice that myself.
That looks incredible.
It's like you only see the shadows of everything, almost. Oh, interesting. Okay. I completely forgot my pitch. Oh, joking. Well, yeah, this place has this military vehicle here. It's called the Humvee. Some people like to call it a tank. This here, and also that machine with the pipes going into the rocks. They both represent something of this government. That machine over there is any government's effort to extract resources from their environment and build stuff with it, or sell the resources to buy more stuff with it. And every government has this. Any group that has authority on any sort of population has something like this. It's their lifeline, basically. It's their generator. It allows them to do the things they do, and they usually cover it for the masses by something like, oh, it's the oil industry. Like, we sell the oil to serve the people, or the money goes to build the country, or things like that. But we all know that these are used for their own purposes 90%, and the rest is spent on other things. So this is any country, any authority's effort to sustain themselves and also sustain their militaries, which is over there. And they use that military to protect this from other governments and to gain more land so they can gain more resources to repeat that cycle until they control the world. I mean, every government kind of wants to do that if they get the chance. And throughout history, we know that they have tried to do that. So this part is quite self-explanatory. It's how the governments of the world work at the moment, most of them. And yeah, you can see the nature is being exhausted from all this resource collection. The rocks are like cracked and deformed. And they keep it from the public. They put this cloth on it. That's why the cloth is there. And they use this to, well, they use it most of the time to protect against their countries and governments, but it gets used often to protect against one's own people as well. Like, you don't want your own people to go against you, so you have to end up using this against your own people as well at some point. That's what they do. Okay, I think you're demonetized now.
Karl, I was never monetized.
Yeah, this is the video that's gonna do it. Like, when I get popular 30 years from now, they're gonna come back to this video and like talk about my views on the world. Oh, God. But yeah, now that we're done with that tour of the landmarks, let's start with this thing. For the interactive parts. This is a window, a very special window, relic of the architect, that is very dusty, can barely see a reflection on it. And we have these flowers that are down. You can bring the rock here, and it would change something.